Ever get that feeling? Like some places just hit different.
Yeah.
Like here in India, you hear about these places, these almost hidden spots, and there are all these stories, these whispers about them. Places that are, I don't know, just vibrating with something. Like there's some kind of energy, a current or something running right beneath the surface.
Right, right. And it makes you wonder, what is it about these places?
Totally. Like what makes them so special? And that's kind of the whole point of this deep dive, right?
That's the mystery we're going to unpack. Yeah, absolutely.
But we're diving deep, going beyond the typical touristy stuff into these, what they call divine places in India. And to help us with that, we have someone with us who's actually experienced the power of these places firsthand.
That's right. And we're so happy to welcome Perak Unpacked, a spiritual seeker who's not just visited these places, but he's really connected with their essence.
Exactly. Perak, welcome to the deep dive.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. So for our listeners, think of this as a shortcut, right? We're going straight to the core of what makes these places tick, what gives them their power, and we're kicking things off with Shri Badrika Ashram. Perak, you've mentioned this place holds a special meaning for you.
It does.
So tell us, what's so special about Shri Badrika Ashram?
Well, Shri Badrika Ashram was founded in 2014 by Om Swami.
Okay.
And my own journey there started more recently, actually. My first visit was in January of 2023, just this year. And from the moment I stepped into the inner sanctum, that sanctum sanctorum, it was just unlike anything I'd experienced before.
Unlike anything before? That's saying something.
Yeah.
What was it about that first moment, that first entry into the space? What was it like?
It was this incredible surge of emotion. I just started crying.
Wow.
Completely out of the blue. It wasn't sadness or even conventional joy. It was pure emotion, just pouring out. And it went on for, I don't know, maybe half an hour.
Oh, wow.
Just tears. And I see this as a direct connection to the divine presence.
You know, it's interesting you say that because there's this beautiful idea, this understanding that, and I think I first heard this from Om Swami himself, that the place where your tears of devotion flow freely, that's where there's a strong presence of the divine.
Exactly. And when those tears come, just naturally, not because you're trying to force it or you want something, but just from being in that space, that's when you know it's real, It reminds me of this story about a saint.
Oh, tell me about it.
So this saint is in prison, right? And he's sitting there, and his feet are pointing towards, I think it was Mecca or Medina.
Right.
And the ruler, who's a devout Muslim, he sees this and he gets really upset.
Yeah.
He says, "You're disrespecting the holy direction. How can you point your feet that way?"
Oh, wow.
And the saint, he just looks at the ruler and says, "Do you believe that your God, Allah, is only in that one direction? That he's not everywhere else?" Of course, the ruler, he couldn't agree with that. And the saint, he just says, "Then show me a direction where I can put my feet where God isn't present."
Powerful, powerful story. So how did that feeling of God's omnipresence, how did that show up for you at Badrika Ashram?
It was exactly that.
Yeah.
Dissolving into that all-encompassing divine. At Shri Badrika Ashram, in that moment, it was like all the mental chatter stopped. All my worries just vanished. Even my sense of me, my identity and purpose, it just dissolved. It was like merging with that ultimate consciousness, that Mahashakti.
That's huge. Now, what do you think is the source of this energy, this intense energy that seems to be concentrated at the ashram?
I think, well, the main catalyst is Om Swami himself.
Okay.
His tapabal, his spiritual power. It's the energy he gained through years and years of intense spiritual practices. Right. And during the consecration of deity at the ashram, he channeled all that sadhana, all that wisdom into the vigraha, into that sacred form.
Yeah.
I remember reading in Om Swami, as we know him, he actually said that Shri Badrika Ashram, it will become a mukti kshetra.
Mukti kshetra.
Yeah, a field of liberation. Mukti meaning liberation, kshetra meaning field, a sacred space.
A field of liberation. That's a powerful image.
It is, and his vision was for it to be a place that guides seekers on both the tantric and Vedic paths.
Wow.
He said that the energy from the deity, it would help anyone who's seeking spiritual progress. And even material progress, no matter where they are on their path. For me, that experience, that first visit to the ashram, it really solidified something I already felt.
Yeah.
This presence of the divine in my life, I'd felt it through my mother, whom I consider the Jagat Janani, the universal mother. But at the ashram, it was undeniable.
Yeah.
direct.
And you also mentioned something about Om Swami's meditation practice, the cry for Mother Divine.
Oh, yes. He talks about it in 13 months in an ice cave.
Okay.
He would spend an hour every day just focusing on the Divine Mother with all his heart, all his emotion. Pure devotion expressed through tears. No asking for anything, no ulterior motives.
Right, yeah.
He said if he could cry for the Divine Mother for a whole hour every day, then his bhakti, his devotion, it would be real, And when I had that experience at the ashram, those uncontrollable tears for half an hour,
Yeah.
it resonated with that, Just this outpouring of emotion purely from being in that presence. No desires, nothing.
So beyond that intense motion, that powerful experience, what was the ashram like sensory-wise, when you first got there in 2023?
Well, the first thing I felt was this deep peace, a stillness of mind, like all the mental noise just quieted down. And it was strange, but I also felt this sense of familiarity.
Really?
Like I'd been there before, a pre-existing connection. Even though it was my first time physically being there, it was like a recognition at a very deep level.
Fascinating. Almost like your soul remembered it. Now, you mentioned a very personal story connected to the ashram as well.
I did.
And it involves a health challenge, right?
Yeah.
Something you went through.
This was a big part of my connection to the ashram. Back in September 2022, my slip disc, it flared up again.
Oh, no.
And it was bad. The pain was excruciating. The doctors, they told me no travel for at least 2 or 3 months. And they said if I did anything too soon, I might need another surgery.
Right.
And even then, there's no guarantee it would help.
I remember you mentioned you'd gone through this before, right? A decade earlier.
I did.
So you knew what you were in for.
Oh, yeah. 10 years earlier, I had the same issue.
Yeah.
So I knew the pain, the limited mobility.
Yeah.
But honestly, what really bothered me wasn't just the physical pain. It was the thought of not being able to do my spiritual practices.
Oh, I see.
Certain sadhanas, they require you to be physically able, and if I was bedridden,
Right.
I couldn't do them. And during this time, when the pain was just so bad, that's when I had this vision. It was about the ashram.
Oh, wow.
It happened early in the morning, maybe
Yeah.
4:03 or 5:00.
Yeah.
I was struggling to sleep because of the pain, and suddenly I had this experience.
Okay.
It was so vivid, so real, it was more than a dream. I found myself inside Shri Badrika Ashram, in that inner sanctum, the Sanctum Sanctorum,
Wow.
and I saw the Mahalakshmi deity. Specifically, it was the form of Lalita Maha Tripura Sundari, which, shows how both the masculine and feminine divine energies are present there.
Right. Right.
And then I saw Om Swami. He turned to me and he asked if I would perform the artam.
That's amazing. What happened in the vision after that?
I said, yes, of course, it would be an honor. And in the vision, I got up and performed the arti to the deity. The detail was incredible. It felt so real. And what was really striking was how much it resembled my actual experience at the ashram later.
Really?
The atmosphere, the layout, even just the feeling of the space, it was all so familiar because I'd already been there in the vision.
That's wild, almost like a premonition. And what about your health? What happened after that vision?
Well, 11 days later, on October 8th, I walked into a spine specialist's office, completely on my own.
Wow.
This doctor, he had 35 years of experience, and he was shocked.
I bet.
He said he'd never seen anyone with a recurrent slip disc recover so fast without surgery,
That's incredible.
especially to the point of walking in just 11 days.
Yeah.
He was baffled. And for me, this was the start of something, a divine cycle connected to Shri Badrika Ashram.
A miraculous healing directly tied to your vision of the ashram. Now, there's more to the ashram's spiritual significance, right?
There is.
You mentioned something about specific divine energies that Om Swami established there.
Yeah, after his intense spiritual practice in 2011, when he came back from the Himalayas, he established the presence of the 15 nityas at Shri Badrika Ashram.
Okay.
These are the 15 primary divine feminine energies. They're associated with Sri Vidya, a tantric tradition that focuses on the worship of the Divine Mother.
Right.
There are actually 16 nityas, but Masvi Nitya, the great eternal one, she encompasses all the others. So these 15 Sangini Shaktas, these companion energies, they were invoked, their power infused within the ashram.
15 distinct divine feminine energies actively present there. That must create an incredibly powerful spiritual environment.
It does.
And you mentioned that the ashram itself, it's in a pretty challenging location physically.
Oh, it is. It's deep in the mountains, and The last 10 kilometers of the road leading up to it.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's narrow, winding, and there's a steep drop-off on one side. Even before you start on that stretch, after you cross the Giri Pool.
The Giri Pool.
It's a bridge that marks the start of that last part.
Right.
There's this feeling, like a mix of anticipation and a little bit of apprehension.
Right.
Those last 10 kilometers, sometimes it takes a whole hour to drive them.
Oh, wow.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
In the 14 years since the ashram opened, there hasn't been a single accident.
Really? No accidents at all?
Not a single one, no fatalities, nothing on that road.
That's remarkable, especially when you compare it to other pilgrimage sites.
Yeah. Sadly, you hear about accidents happening at places like Kedarnath.
Yeah.
But at Shri Badrika Ashram,
Yeah.
14 years, no incidents. It really makes you think about the protective energies there. For me, the experience starts even before I get to the ashram. As soon as I cross that Giri Pool, the tears start flowing.
Yeah.
Every single time. It's the presence of the Divine Mother,
Yeah.
It's so strong, I just can't contain it.
So powerful. And despite your initial hesitation about going back, because of your health, you felt this pull to return.
I did, countless times.
And I think you said one of the most significant experiences was actually attending Om Swami's first discourse there.
It was. This was on January 6th, 2023, the day after I first visited.
Okay.
The moment he stepped into the Garbhagriha, the inner sanctum.
Yeah.
It was like my 15 years of Durga Saptashati practice.
Yeah.
It all culminated in that moment.
Wow.
Like I had finally found the Divine Mother I'd been seeking. And for the entire 45 minutes of his discourse and the arti afterwards, I was just weeping. I didn't even hear the questions or the answers. All I saw was my mother, my Jagat Janani.
You experienced your guru as the Divine Mother herself.
Absolutely. My guru is my mother and my Narayana. My Narayana, the divine masculine principle. And this isn't just a feeling. You know? If anyone studies his sadhana, his tapasya, the intense spiritual practices he did, they would understand. Back in 2011, when he came down from the Himalayas for the first time, he met his biological mother, and he told her that this would be his last incarnation on Earth.
Oh, wow.
And that he wouldn't return for 5,000 years. And not even to this plane of existence. That statement is profound. It really shows why Shri Badrika Ashram is so special, so unique.
You know, it's interesting. You've talked about how these spiritual places, they're often hard to get to.
They are, yeah.
Like physically challenging. And it seems to be a common theme.
It is. So many of the really powerful sites, they're in remote areas, high in the mountains.
Right.
Naturally silent places. And it's kind of a contrast to how some spiritual places are becoming more like tourist spots.
Right.
Like picnic spots, Take Kedarnath, for example. Sadly, so many people go there just to take selfies and make reels for social media.
Yeah.
A place that should be about reverence, about seeking spiritual growth. It becomes a backdrop for...
Photo op.
Yeah, basically. And it makes you question, what are people really going there for?
It does. So do you think making these spiritual paths easier, making them more accessible, does that take away from their value?
I think it might. Historically, these were places for true seekers, people willing to endure hardship to reach them. And there's something to be said for that, for the effort, the struggle.
Right, right. But you also mentioned that even if someone's intentions aren't purely spiritual, there might still be some benefit to visiting these places.
There could be. The energy of these sacred spaces, it's undeniable.
Yeah.
Even if someone goes there with different motivations, they might still experience a shift within themselves. And it also ties into patrada, eligibility or receptivity.
Okay.
It's influenced by the good deeds you've done, your past actions. If you're even drawn to visit these places, it means something.
Right.
It's like turning milk into curd. Once that transformation happens, you can't go back.
I see.
Visiting these places, it can leave an impression, even if it's subtle at first.
So no pilgrimage, no act of devotion is wasted.
Exactly. It's like perfume, Some scents fade quickly, others linger. The impact of a holy place, it depends on your spiritual samskaras, the impressions from past lives, and your good deeds.
You shared a story from your own childhood about a pilgrimage where it seemed like, there was some kind of divine intervention.
I did. This was when I was very young. We were on the Chardam Yatra, going to Yamunotri, and it was pouring rain. And somehow I got separated from my family. I was lost, scared, obviously.
Of course.
And then this sadhu appeared out of nowhere. He spoke in a language I didn't understand, but I knew he was asking if I was alone. He took my hand and he led me to this little eatery.
Wow.
And that's where my family found me. And then just as suddenly, he was gone.
You disappeared.
Vanished.
Yeah.
I asked the shopkeeper about him, but he said he hadn't seen anyone bring me there. It was a profound experience.
Especially for a child.
It was. And it showed me that there are special forces at work in these places.
Right. Unseen forces.
There are so many hidden sages, siddhas, living in places like Badranath, Kedarnath, Gangotri, Yamunotri.
Right.
They stay in seclusion, using their spiritual power to help the world in ways we don't even see. Even Om Swami, who has been long periods in solitude, and he believed that he could do more for humanity during those times.
Now, beyond Shri Badrika Ashram and the Char Dam, you've visited other divine places, right? Where did you feel a strong energy?
I have. And one that comes to mind is Somnath Jyotirlinga in Gujarat.
Okay.
That's actually my home state. It's the first of the 12 Jyotirlingas. It's believed that Lord Chandra himself worshipped there to regain his lost luster. I went there specifically to do research for my Mahasur series.
A Mahasur, that's your fiction series.
Yeah, it touches upon these sacred sites. And at Somnath,
Yeah.
the energy, especially during the Mangala Arti in the morning and the Sayan Arti in the evening, it was so powerful. That temple, it's been through so much.
Right.
Invasions, destruction, and it's still standing. The original temple, it was believed to be built by Krishna.
Wow.
Then Ravana reconstructed it during the Trita Yuga, and later on, Ahilyabai Holkar renovated it.
It's incredible how these places can withstand so much and still
I know.
retain their sacredness. You touched upon a misconception people have about visiting holy sites.
Oh, yeah. The idea that the benefit is only when you're physically inside the temple, like right in front of the inner sanctum.
Right.
But it's not true. The whole area can be a Siddha Kshetra.
Acidic kshetra.
Yeah, a field imbued with spiritual power, like take Ujjain or Avantika.
Right.
That whole city is considered sacred. Even if you just do your spiritual practices in your hotel room there,
Yeah.
it's still powerful
Yeah.
because the whole area is vibrating with that energy.
It's like the energy permeates everything.
Exactly. And Nilakal, where the Kamakya temple is, there's another Siddha Kshetra. The whole region.
So it's not just about the temple walls, it's about the whole space.
It is. And at Somnath, I had that same experience.
Oh, the tears.
Yeah, during the RT. It's become my own personal indicator, you know?
Yeah.
When I feel those tears, I know there's a strong divine presence.
That's powerful. Now, what about Shri Padmanabhaswamy Temple? I know you mentioned that one as well.
Oh, that's an incredible place. It's in South India, in Thiruvananthapuram.
Right.
And it's ancient, like 5,000 years old. There are all these mysteries surrounding it, especially those hidden vaults.
Yeah, those are legendary. What about the deity itself? What was it like to see that?
The form of Lord Vishnu there, it's just awe-inspiring. He's in Anantha Shainam, the reclining pose, Yoga Nidra, on the Shisha, the serpent.
Right?
And Rama is emerging from a lotus coming from his navel.
Wow.
And there's a Shiva lingam under his hand. The Vigraha, it's huge, maybe 18 to 21 feet long.
That's massive.
It is. And it's made of this dark, almost black stone. When I had the darshan, especially when it was lit up with the lamps,
Yeah.
I really felt it, the presence of Lord Vishnu. It's hard to describe.
Those are the kind of experiences that stick with you.
They do. It's like trying to explain the smell of a rose.
Okay.
Or the difference between, a gulab jamun and motokkura giladu. You can describe the ingredients, but the actual experience, that flavor,
Yeah.
you have to experience it yourself. In each of these places, it has its own unique energy, its own quality. At Padmanabhaswamy, I felt a very rajasic energy. Yeah, the energy of activity, dynamism, grandeur. And I think that's because the form of the Lord and because Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and prosperity, she's there with Mahavishnu. So there's this sense of beauty, opulence, vibrancy.
It seems like the cultural preservation in South India and in Gujarat as well, it's really played a role in keeping these places so powerful.
I think so. Absolutely. Yeah. If it wasn't for the devotion of the people there and the way they've preserved the traditions, I think we would have lost so much of our Sanatan culture. Even today, the bhakti, the devotion you see there.
Right.
It's amazing. Their commitment to Sanatan Dharma is so strong. I felt it when I was traveling through South India, exploring all those places connected to Lord Rama, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, even Sri Lanka.
Now, I know you also mentioned the Tripura Sundari temples.
I did.
Have you been to those?
There's the main one in Tripura and another in Banswara, Rajasthan. But honestly, I haven't felt called to visit them yet.
Interesting.
especially after my experiences at Shri Badrika Ashram.
It sounds like your connection to the ashram has, well, it's changed how you view these pilgrimages.
It has. To be honest, I don't feel the same need to go to places like Kailash or Amarnath anymore.
Really?
I feel like I've already found what I was seeking.
Wow.
It's like, imagine having nourishing, home-cooked food every day.
Yeah.
Made with love, like your mother's cooking. You wouldn't crave those outside things anymore.
Right. You'd be satisfied.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I found that spiritual nourishment. My focus now is on serving my guru and Sanatana Dharma.
That's powerful. And I think you had one last thought about Shri Badrika Ashram to share with us.
I did. Om Swami's vision for the ashram was very specific.
Okay.
He wanted it to stay small with a capacity of around 200 people. He said there wouldn't be any other branches anywhere else.
Interesting.
His focus was on genuine seekers, people who truly yearn for realization.
Right.
He didn't want huge crowds. He wanted a space for sincere devotion. And even now, after 14 years,
Yeah.
the ashram's capacity has stayed the same.
Sticking to his vision. Well, Perak, thank you so much for sharing these insights, these personal experiences.
My pleasure.
The stories about Shri Badrika Ashram, especially that feeling of the Divine Mother's protection, even on that difficult journey,
Yeah.
they're truly fascinating. To our listeners, we encourage you to explore these places further. You can start with a simple online search for Shri Badrika Ashram. We've also talked about Somnath, Sri Padmanabha Swami, and the concept of Siddhakshetras.
Right.
And while Perak hasn't been to Tripura Sundari yet, it's definitely a place with its own spiritual significance.
It is.
Perak, thank you again for your time, for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you for having me.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If you've had any similar experiences at these or other divine places, we would love to hear about them.
Absolutely.
Finally, we'll leave you with this.
Yeah.
Think about the possibility of encountering the divine in unexpected places and how that encounter could change your whole perspective on your spiritual journey.
Yeah, it really can. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Until then.